Hospopreneurs. Hello and welcome to the 5th episode of the Hospopreneurs podcast. Today I've got Jamie Fleming in, the Queensland Diageo Reserve Ambassador. Welcome, Jamie.
Thank you.
Cool, man. So today I wanted to open the episode. I usually open, now that I actually open the episode with a question that I'm going to bring in a little bit later. But I'm really excited for that particular question. If you listen to the last couple of episodes, we got some cool stuff. But firstly, I want to open with sort of how we met. How did we actually meet, Jamie?
It was at one of your places of work.
I've mentioned it before. I'm happy to.
I came in to do a little whiskey masterclass as a congratulations to your team from your bosses, and you were definitely one of the ones that showed a lot of interest and asked some good questions. So sort of made me stand up and take notice.
Thanks, man.
Cheers.
I appreciate that. Cool. So then the next thing is, so for me, it's about learning and growing and building. Like, I always want to expand my knowledge and be the best version of myself that I can be day to day. Like, learn, grow, build. I want to know what it is for you overall. You know, what is it? What's your why? Your big picture? Like, what is it that you want to do every day?
There's lots of motivations. I think in this role for me, a lot of people approach it slightly differently. Being an ambassador is somewhat of a vague term. We all have similar things that we go for, but I think for me, it's a general. I just want everybody to enjoy the industry as much as I do, and I think certainly the way I got there was to be given more information and feel confident when I walked into a room and know what I'm doing to such an extent that, if we're working a well next to each other or working a section in a restaurant, the communication is so next level because we understand everything that's going on. We can actually just have a good time. And what I've found, every time you sort of push outside your comfort zone, while you're not quite up to where you'd like to be, whatever that skill is, it could be drawing a straight line or making a cocktail, whatever it is. While you're still practicing and while you're still thinking about what you're doing, you don't get the full experience and the full immersiveness of what that experience can offer. So for me, I've always been super interested in training people and training staff and seeing that little flicker of inspiration that happens when you talk to some people. The light bulb moment. Absolutely. And in general, I hate drinking at rubbish bars. I really just want to go everywhere and have a good drink. So, for me, it's just like I want to walk into a venue and see someone that I've helped along the way, and they completely blow my mind.
Awesome.
How did you think of that? So, that's what drives me in my job.
And what's that sort of process of learning? Like, is it for you? What's your process of learning? Like, how do you go about exploring new things?
Oh, it's different for everybody. I've got those really annoying friends that can read something once and it's just there.
Yeah, that photograph
will
crazy.
Never go.
Yeah,
and it's really frustrating, especially when you start to go through competitions and do tests and stuff, and there's written exams and certain dates and what year was this made, or what was the name of the guy who made this, or what was Joe's dog who made the bloody Negroni, whatever it is. And all of that stuff I only really remember once it's sort of spoken to. I'm very sort of if you tell me a story, I will remember it.
An auditory learner.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you do a 2-hour presentation, I could go in and do the same presentation with the same confidence the next day. But if I read that script, I could read it 100 times.
Yeah, it's not going to go in.
It's not sticking.
Yeah.
And it's the same way with cocktails. I can read specs list 100 times until I actually make that a couple of times on my well, in my area, in my comfort space.
Yep.
Till I make that a couple of times, it's not going in. But
right.
Once it's there, it's there.
Cool. So it's really important to know the way that we learn as well. So that's awesome that you've obviously learned that about yourself. And I think that that's really important for people to know about themselves, how they learn, how they absorb information, retain that information, and then can use it.
Absolutely. And it's something that I definitely noticed a lot more once I started to to manage venues and sort of start to be somewhat of a mentor for something. Like for me, this whole industry is very mentor based. You find someone, you sort of attach themselves to them, or it could be a venue, it could be a person, and you absorb as much information as you can from that person. And unfortunately, some people, like, loyalty is a huge thing in this industry as well. But for me, as far as I'm concerned, once somebody can't learn anything else from me, I expect them to move on. The same way that I did when I worked at a couple of venues, and I got to a stage where I didn't feel like I was progressing anymore, and I felt like I was actually becoming stagnant. And once I hit that point, it took a couple of older bartenders that I considered mentors to go, "Are you learning?" And no, I'm not. You've got to go.
Yeah.
And it's not a negative thing in this industry, because the more people that you can learn from, all of us have a different base of knowledge, and all of us have different interests, and the more people that you can work with and work alongside and work for, the more information, in my perspective, the way I learn, the more information I can retain and actually progress and try to share that with other people.
Yeah, that's a really interesting perspective, and it resonates with me because I'm someone who needs to see things applied in different ways. So when you see 10 different bartenders or whoever, or chefs or whoever we're talking about learning from, 10 different people doing something similar, but there's this commonality. So they might doing this like a similar process, but you get that commonality, and you're like, okay, that's the core component of what I need to learn there. So that's really cool.
Yeah, and it comes back to one of the questions I always told anyone that was sort of working with me or for me was, if I did something and they didn't agree with it, ask me why. If I can't give you a legitimate answer, then I'm completely open to suggestion. If you come up with this amazing way to do this thing, cool, let's do it that way. If that makes my day easier, rad. Makes your day easier, rad. I don't care, cool, as long as it gets done properly. And it's always that question of why. Like for me, it was never the boss said do it this way, so you got to do it that way.
Yeah.
No way, that's stupid. Like,
yeah,
that just completely blunts any progression possible.
Yes.
If we did that in every industry, we'd never get anywhere.
Yeah, I think about that you're talking about now as limiting creative thought. It just obstructs creativity, obstructs flow. So I'm really glad you brought that up. That's awesome. I want to ask you what you're learning now. Like, what are you learning? What are you learning about?
I'm learning how to be a dad every day.
Yeah.
That's an interesting challenge. To be completely honest with you, I'm probably not learning enough. It's something that I sort of think about all the time and never quite put into action. A lot of what I'm learning is become more introspective since I've taken a step back from having something direct to learn every day. Yeah. So what I mean by that is when I was in bars, or when I was designing menus, or when I was, doing back of house, there was always, okay, I don't quite know how to do the books as well as I'd like. I don't quite know how to write an invoice properly. I don't quite know how to, make this cocktail. There's always something there that's very direct. It's very easy to see. Okay, I don't know this. I need to do this. I'm now in a job where I have a little bit more freedom, and I suppose it's still learning how to do that, and sort of looking to people I respect within the industry who have been in similar roles. But I guess it's more learning for myself now, and looking into, okay, where can I progress? What do I need to learn to get to that next stage? What is that next stage? I suppose that's what I'm really learning at the moment is what, as a father of two, about to turn 30, what is my next step? How can I progress my career, and where am I going to be happy? So I suppose I'm sort of back to square one, learning how to be content, I suppose. I don't know. Yeah. It's an interesting question.
I liked your answer. Yeah, cool. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to ask you, because you sort of touched on your current role, I want to go back a bit further and ask you, what led you into hospitality?
Mealtime. When I was a kid, growing up, I was very fortunate enough to, my mum worked really hard. She worked ridiculously hard, very, very long hours. It was all from home, but she owned her own business. And we traveled a lot. And the one time where we actually sat down as, me, my brother, my mum, if my stepdad was there, cool, he might have been off around the country working as well. They worked for the same company. But it was the one time we all sat down and sort of, we were present. And because of the short on time, and, I was very fortunate. I got to grow up in a few restaurants, and they're still close family friends. My first proper job was in one of our favourite restaurants as a kid. And yeah, I just fell in love with everything about it. It's the celebration of just like who you're with. There's nothing about that mealtime that sucks.
Yeah.
You're sitting down, you're having good food,
special time.
You're having a laugh, you're with your family or with your friends or with, as we got older, a date or business, whatever it is. There's always something. I never took anything negative out of that sitting at a restaurant and sitting at mealtime. And I mean, from the time I think when I was 8 years old, I told my mum I wanted to be a chef.
Yeah.
And as much as I am very off with the fairies, and I had my phases where every single day I seemed to want to be a lawyer or a lacrosse player or a stockbroker or ice hockey, whatever. I always came back to cooking. I always came back to that love of being able to put something forward and like it's cooking a meal for someone is a very nice thing to do. And if you can do that 100 times a day, then that's pretty cool. You can, as corny as it sounds and as tacky as this line is, and I've put it over the bar a few times, like, when you're serving food or you're serving drinks, like, people are there for a reason, and you might be helping them through a really tough time, or you might be helping them celebrate their 1 year anniversary or whatever it is, baby, whatever it is, and you help them achieve that. And that was something that always resonated with me, that sort of almost masochistic thirst to just sort of give those really nice experiences to people. And I always felt that one of my best abilities or the thing I was interested in most was food.
Yeah.
So it started from there. And then started washing dishes when I was 14, worked my way up through that while I finished high school, went overseas, started getting into bars, realised I could go home not smelling of grease and probably, talk to a couple more ladies than if I was in the kitchen. So I decided to stick with front of house.
Out the back, yeah. Cool, okay. So you did sort of pursue that a little bit more. Are you allowed to say the experience you had on television?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, this was a lot further on in my career. But after sort of the big move for me in my career was moving to Sydney. I made a decision. I'm going to move to Sydney, and I'm going to try and get into cocktail bars. I had a couple of mates that worked in really good cocktail bars in Sydney. It's all I wanted to do. I sort of caught the bug for bartending.
Yep.
I loved the adrenaline. It was exactly the same as a kitchen, except the things I said before. And so that was my big move. Over time, a bit more travel, and I met my partner at the time that we had kids. And
did you meet her in the bar?
I did. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I did actually. But yeah, opportunity came along a few years ago to go on MasterChef.
Yep.
And I sort of took it with a grain of salt. They were like, "Oh, fly down to Melbourne, come and audition. Like, best case scenario, I get a trip to Melbourne.
Yeah.
Even better case scenario, I maybe get on the show." And then got straight on the show and went pretty far through. I cringe looking back at it now, but it certainly opened some doors for me. And coming out of that, I actually ended up opening a restaurant with two of the guys that I used to help run a bar for, in James and Warren for 8 Hospitality in Sydney. So
that's
having
awesome.
Worked for them at Grandma's for a long time. Still probably my favourite job I've ever had. Came out of the show and got given an opportunity to work with some good friends of mine who were chefs to sort of train me up a little bit more in the kitchen, and then I opened a restaurant straight away.
Great. So did you find that experience was really helpful for your career?
It was certainly, the position I am in now, and the extra exposure I got through the show probably, it definitely helps me get the role I'm in today.
Cool.
I suppose very directly, from a direct point of view, one of the guys I was on the show with, Sean Baxter, he got me the job.
Awesome. Yeah.
He was the ex national ambassador for Johnny Walker. Now gone and opened his own distillery in Adelaide.
Mhm.
But
What's that called?
It's called Never Never.
Never Never?
Never Never Distilling. It's amazing, great stuff. But yeah, without a 3 a.m. Chinese meal after a competition final one night, there wouldn't have been the chats that sort of got me my foot in the door with Sweet and Chili.
Cool. Fantastic. And so I mentioned Diageo Reserve, you're Diageo Reserve brand ambassador for Queensland, and then you said Sweet and Chili.
Yep.
Can you tell us a bit about the
so
two and sort of what they are?
Sweet and Chili is the company I work for, and basically Diageo look to us to sort of provide the drinks experts and
Cool.
and help them sort of do a lot of the training sessions and provide a lot of content
Awesome.
for those guys. Everyone in Sweet and Chili is top of their game, have been ambassadors for years, or have run companies or run events for years, or run bars for years. The people I work with within that company are incredible. The talent in there is, I still walk into that office and consider myself the very, very, very junior person. So, very lucky to work with such an amazing team.
Awesome. Well, that's the sort of room you want to be in.
Absolutely.
You're, what is it? If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
That's it.
So that's it. You're in the right rooms.
That's it.
Cool. And I'm definitely in the right room at the moment. Just the two of us. But the next question I wanted to ask you was, there's a competition that you've been judging recently. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. World Class is the largest sort of cocktail competition in the world, run by Diageo, and it's certainly the largest in Australia in terms of exposure. And yeah, it's basically, we set a whole lot of challenges, very, very difficult challenges, with the expectation that people are really going to be pushing boundaries. This is definitely for people at the top of their game who I think the thing about cocktail competitions that some people don't realize is the guys who win and the guys who go off and compete internationally and compete globally. It's not a instant sort of thing. It's lots and lots of work, and people dedicate 6, 7, 8 months to this one competition. And I feel very fortunate to be part of such a program, and just to get to hang out with. I mean, I've just spent 3 days last week with 20 of the best bartenders in the country, along with a whole lot of people that I respected that were there to judge.
Yeah.
And I got to sort of help these people through this experience and hopefully give them some tips that they took away, or sometimes it's just sort of calming them down a little bit before they go out on stage, and it's really confronting. For those listening that have never really seen how competitions work, it's a little bit different with World Class. It's literally, you walk in there, you have a bar set up, and it's you and 4 people, and that's it. Like, high pressure. You got 6 minutes to show 6 months of work.
Yeah. Is there a camera too, or is it recording you and stuff?
There is occasionally, sometimes. Yep. There certainly is at Globals.
Yep.
But, I think it's always interesting to see the people who've been doing it for a while, or the people who are just coming into it, or the people who are so fresh that they're actually too naive to realize who they're actually talking to, so they just crush it. And those moments are great. But it's it's confronting. I'm very fortunate to be in a role where I get to do a lot of public speaking, and I get to talk to people that I respect all the time. So I've sort of gotten used to it, but still, some of the people in those judging panels are, I'd crumble. And I have done before, so.
Oh, gee. So what stage is the competition at now?
So we've just crowned our Australian winner.
Yep.
Who was Andrea Gowdy from Maybe Frank in Sydney. An amazing bartender. Well deserved. He's He's a very good friend of mine. Fortunate enough to say he's a very good friend of mine. He's just a lovely, lovely guy, and I'm looking forward to see. I know how much work he put in last year, and I know how much work he put in this year to get to where he is. So I'm looking forward to see how this progresses with the mentoring that he's going to get over the next little while, and where he ends up at Globals, which will be in Mexico City later this year.
That's super exciting.
Mm.
Yeah. So you've sort of touched on a little bit about what you do as a brand ambassador. So what can we broaden that a little bit more? So what does a brand ambassador actually do?
So, I mean, I guess my main role is to be an advocate for our brands. Within that, we help with judging, help with mentoring for competitions like this, and other things we put up over the year. We do a lot of sessions to bartenders, such as the one that we met on. Teaching everything from base building blocks. This is how you hold a bottle. This is how you do this. Very 101 stuff, right through to talking about the citric acid content in 30 mils of lemon juice, to the difference between when you use a syrup that has fructose versus sucrose, and how that might affect the flavor of the cocktail. So it's a pretty broad spectrum. But about half of my time is dedicated to training sessions.
Yep.
To the Diageo Bar Academy, which we run in Australia as well, which is fantastic. And then the other half is a lot of going to bars, saying hello, being the face, trying to find opportunities where we can sort of help each other mutually, and put on events, and like I said at the beginning, bring up the general level of the drinking experience, not just for bartenders, not just for me being selfish, but also for the general public. I think it's very easy to get caught up in, and very easy to get caught up in the sort of those competitions and being way out there with drinks and stuff. And I think it's very important to remember that that's a relatively small part of the market, and it's much more about bringing the total level up and getting the quality of drinks up across the entire hospitality industry, which will but definitely benefit the consumer, and benefit the guests that are coming in wanting to try something new, and taking that punt. And there's we always used to laugh about it. You never want post order trauma. When you go into a place that you haven't been before, and you order a drink or you order something off the menu, and it's a $20 gamble.
Yeah.
It's a $25 gamble. Like, am I going to like this? I have no idea. Right. So if we can make sure that we're training and giving enough information to staff to help guide our guests and make them feel at ease when they're making those choices, then we can also help them find something that they've never tried before that they think's absolutely delicious.
That's awesome. I think that's a really good way to go about it. So a lot of people talk about the difference, or I mean, we don't really, in the industry we know, but I sort of want to spell it out to people who aren't in the industry. What's actually the difference between brand ambassador and a sales rep?
I'm very fortunate that I don't really sell stuff.
Yep.
My pure role is to be a support for the guys going and selling.
Yep.
And if they need something from me, if they need a training session, or if they need a little bit more information on a new whiskey that we bring in, or they need tasting notes or things like that, that's definitely something that we can go in and help with. And also to be the sort of creative side of things. I spend much more time coming up with concepts for events for different venues than I do, looking over an Excel spreadsheet of nip prices and things like that. Obviously, it's still something you keep in mind, but my role is definitely to be an advocate for the brand as opposed to sell the brand.
Cool. I think that's you mentioned creativity there as well, and I think that certainly works really well for you. You're definitely a really creative guy, so you get to apply those sorts of things. Do you find that you get to really apply your creative mind in this industry?
Absolutely. It's an amazing industry to do so. And I think I was talking to a bartender from up here about it, Alex Boone, and he made a great analogy that outside of cinema, where you can sort of completely immerse yourself, bartending is one sort of great art form or creative outlet, because you have the ability to be tactile.
Yep.
You have the ability to use all of your senses.
Yep.
There's aroma, there's touch, there's sound.
Mm-hmm.
And sound's one that people are like, really? Like, you can listen to a drink? Of course you can. I can walk into a bar with you and hear a cocktail being shaken, and I can tell you whether I want to drink at that place or not.
Yep.
Straight from the sound, what kind of ice they have, what kind of, whether they can actually understand how to shake properly, all these things. But also down to not just the technical part of the beverage. There's a wider creative aspect of creating these whole spaces. It's not just creating a drink or creating a dish. You're creating an entire experience. One fantastic example is Grant Achatz from Alinea in Chicago. His entire restaurant is designed to put you completely out of your comfort zone. It's almost more like an art installation than it is a meal. Right from the entryway. The entryway was built in such a way so that it made you feel like it was a super long corridor, and as you're walking down it gets smaller, almost like Willy Wonka.
Oh, right.
And then as you get towards the end, just a door slides open on your side, and you're like, oh, that's not what I was expecting. So straight away, you know that you're in for this sort of like experience. And those sorts of things, it doesn't always need to be like that. I have as much joy going to the pub and having a cheap pub lunch and a schooner as I do going to an amazing restaurant like that. But your ability to create everything from something you eat to something you drink to an entire experience that you can whisk somebody away from their problems or help them celebrate, as we were talking about before, that is a huge creative outlet, and it deals with so many different aspects that I think it's a fantastic industry for creative people.
Thanks for sharing that, Jamie. That's really awesome. You mentioned something there that made me think about something that we talked about recently, just touched on. You said sometimes you're just as happy going to a pub, having a bowl of chips. I think you mentioned someone that you knew, or a gentleman who, restaurateur, who goes to... Yeah. Can you tell us a bit about that?
I used to work for a gentleman who runs a few successful restaurants, Hazard restaurants. And he would come into the restaurant every day and order the spiced nuts. There's two. He used to do that. But then there's another one that used to come in and order a bowl of chips. Yeah. And I always wondered, a couple of months in, I was like, why? Like, why do you come in and order a bowl of chips and you'll eat two of them and then walk out? Yeah. And he turned to me and he said, if I'm paying you guys as much as I pay you, and we're charging the guests as much as we charge them, if you can't do the easiest thing, like frying some chips, if you can't get that right, how can I expect you to do anything else? Yep. Like, that's my benchmark. If you can't get the lowest common denominator right, why would you be able to do any other maths problem? Sort of, you know what I mean? And that was a lesson I never forgot. Yeah. And I took it into my management things. And, I got a bit extreme at some points, sending people home for very, very small things. But at the same time, if I as a manager spend months putting together a cocktail list or weeks putting together a new food list or something like that, and you can't fold a napkin properly or you can't put a knife down the right way, why would I expect you to be able to talk about what I put my heart and soul into? Yeah. And outside of that, just to take a little step back there, the consistency is important. Even when you're setting tables, they've all got to be identical, So yeah, there's something very sexy about walking into a restaurant that's been set perfectly. Yeah. And it's the calm before the storm. Yeah. Like I used to love walking into the restaurant just before we opened. Kitchen was quiet. The chefs were out the back just chilling before they were about to get hammered. Ready to rumble. It's the battlefield before battle. Yeah. Everyone's doing their last minute checks on their station, sort of doing the walk around, making sure it's all stocked, and you just sort of, it's that little lull where you can look at each other and be like, hey, have a chat and have a cup of tea or whatever. And then it's on. Bang. Let's go. Then you're in the trenches. Absolutely. And you lock in and go for 5, 6, 7, 12, 15, 18 hours, whatever it is. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people outside of the industry forget, is that this is it's a brutal industry.
Mm.
You know, I've had multiple close to 24-hour days, and people don't understand that that's how much work goes behind
Mm.
making one simple drink for you
That's right.
on the weekend. So,
And then when the public encounters, the staff in the industry, then usually people have had some hectic shift before they get to them to deal with them anyway, and then it's got to be consistent to provide a high level experience for every customer. You got to be on your game every single customer,
every single hour. I used to work for a gentleman, and we opened at 6 p.m. and we weren't allowed to close on weekends until 9 a.m. minimum.
Yeah.
But we were a cocktail bar.
Yep.
And if somebody ordered a martini at 6 o'clock when we opened, or they ordered at 6 a.m. when we were wanting to close, it had to be perfect.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't,
Whoa.
it wasn't good enough. So, your attention to detail and your ability to work quickly and efficiently definitely kicks in. And if it doesn't, I don't know, go to another job.
Yeah. Cool. Okay.
It isn't for everybody. It's high stress but high reward.
Yeah.
There's definitely high reward.
Love it. Thanks for sharing those insights there. The next question I had was about your isn't necessarily about your role now, but over your time in the industry, because you've been doing it a while now. I've got a couple of questions on that. The first one is, what's the coolest gig you've ever had? This question was inspired by the Lagavulin tasting with the VR headsets.
Yeah, they were pretty cool. The coolest gig I've ever had.
Because I know you got a lot of stories.
Yeah. I reckon the coolest for me was I got to work a Movember party.
Yeah.
And it was just celebrity, and I'm not talking like Australian D-grade celebrity. Like Leonardo DiCaprio was in the corner, Tobey Maguire was in the corner, the whole like half the Entourage crew was there, Megan Gale was there, Jennifer Hawke, blah 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 blah. Like all these people, and look, when you work in these sort of top tier venues, like a lot of us have had these sorts of experiences.
Yeah.
But at this one moment, I sort of was halfway through serving, cocktail for you, had a chat to like all these guys that I tell people had a chat to DiCaprio, and they're like, "What? Oh my god!"
Yeah.
But he's just a lovely guy. And then, but all of these like Hollywood celebrities, and the moment that made it the coolest gig I've ever done was I turned around and Glenn McGrath was in front of me. And I froze, like, completely lost it. I'm like, just, excuse me, I had to turn around, center myself, what can I get you? Just a beer. I'm like, oh, no worries. Everyone was like, why out of everyone in this room
not DiCaprio.
Was that the person? I'm like, well,
Yeah.
I didn't pretend to be Leonardo DiCaprio every day in my backyard as a kid.
Yeah.
Like, I was
It became
Glenn McGrath.
personal.
Absolutely. Little things like that. I mean, in terms of like what we've actually done, that sort of virtual reality thing was amazing. The experience was incredible and immersive, and we're fortunate to have the things to play with to be able to do those sorts of events. But it's always the little things, serving someone on their honeymoon. Or those are the ones that
It's like those special experiences in people's lives.
Yeah, a simple thank you note that you get at the end of a meal. Like those are the cool ones. I haven't done a couple of boat parties. They were pretty cool.
Yeah,
yeah, but no, nothing. I mean, those for me, I can't even explain what they were because they weren't that important to me. But little things like that, and getting to serve my mum a martini on her 50th birthday and things like that. Like, those are the ones that stick with me. So those are the cool gigs.
Yeah.
Just getting to hang out with your mates and serve some booze and have some fun.
Love it.
Yeah.
You mentioned there about having access to this, I suppose, demographic that just normal people can't get amongst. So this is obviously an awesome industry to be able to do that. And I think that's something that we should share with other people as well. This is like, how else is, Joe Blow going to meet someone like DiCaprio or Megan Gale or whoever,
And it's, I think it's all summed up perfectly, and I can't believe I'm quoting this movie, but Uh, cocktail.
Cocktail, yeah. Tom
Cocktail.
Cruise.
Yeah, there is, as ridiculous as that is, there is a quote. There is a quote in that movie that just says, "The bartender is the aristocrat of the working class."
Yes, I remember that quote.
And it is so true. I mean, you talk to anyone within bars, like, you don't wait in lines. You get free stuff. You meet people that you should not meet.
Yep.
I mean, you are on a complete champagne taste with a beer wage.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate enough to... You talk to anyone that's been in the industry for a while, and they can tell you about this sort of super rare 1 of 200 whiskey, and they're earning like less than a janitor.
Yeah, yeah.
But they can still talk about it knowledgeably and
That's
talk
right.
about the difference between $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 bottles of wine, and the industry is tough, and it potentially life shortening, but at the same time, the reward that you get if you really put in the effort and commit yourself to it is astronomical. And it's not just through freebies and things like that. It's the friendships that you create, and the connections that you have all around the world, purely because you work in an industry that there's an automatic camaraderie. If you have somebody walks into the bar and they look at a menu the certain way, they look at a back bar a certain way, they order a cocktail a certain way, they're in the industry. And I guarantee you, in that exchange, before the end of the next 10 minutes, you've probably had a shot together.
Yep.
Like, there's just something about the camaraderie of, like, man, I understand what you're going through.
That's right.
Kudos for you having a night off. Let's share this experience. So
love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. The other thing I wanted to ask you because I mentioned you've been working in the industry a long time. How long have you been working in the industry now?
It's about 15 years now.
15 years. So in that time, you'll have seen crazy change, massive change in the industry. What have you seen? What sort of growth and development and innovation have you seen in hospitality?
I mean, I can only really speak on what I've experienced, so mainly within Australia, but I mean, the small bar scene has blown up, and the move from the sort of super club venues that of old into a more bespoke experience has been astronomical. And a lot of it is we very much follow the food trend. The return of the rock star celebrity chef that happened in the 90s, and a lot of it was started by people like Marco Pierre White and things like that in the 80s. Consumers started to become more knowledgeable, and I think that is the biggest change.
Right.
Once you become, and it's the same as anything, it's happened in music. When you're exposed to so much, you have the opportunity to develop a very niche
Mm-hmm.
I love Negronis, or I love Swedish minimal house.
Yeah.
Like, the genres, music's a great analogy because you can like such a specific thing, and it's the same with food and beverage. You have such a choice, and there's so much information, and there's so much opportunity to go out and try new things and try things from experimental people, that you have that opportunity to sort of be very direct. Like, no, I like this. When I started in bars, there were maybe 3 gins on the back bar.
Yeah, yeah.
Bombay Sapphire, Gordon's, and Tanqueray. And that was it. Maybe Beefeater if you were lucky. Same with bourbons and all of it's just. But there are 1,000 liqueurs.
Yeah.
Every single color under the sun. And now you get to walk into bars like Boilermaker House or the Baxter Inn or Savile Row up in Brisbane, and you see there are 500-600 whiskeys, just single malt whiskeys from Scotland.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous.
Hectic.
It's so insane. And not only that, people now understand the differences.
Yep.
I've served 20-year-olds that come in and like, oh, I really want this peaty thing from Isla, like, give me a Kalila Bock. I'm like, how do you even know that? When I was 20, I was drinking like vodka lime and sodas.
Yep.
Bourbon and Cokes. Like, come on, man. So just the sheer range has grown so much, and the consumer has become far more educated, which is a double-edged sword.
Mm.
It means that you have things like Yelp where everybody thinks they're an expert,
Yep.
but it also gives you the opportunity to experiment and provide a service that hasn't been seen before, and people are going to be accepting of that.
Awesome. Yeah, cool. That's really awesome to take note and think about how obviously different distilleries have popped up and done their own thing.
Yeah.
So how are you innovating? Are you doing anything to innovate specifically? Is there anything that you're doing to change the industry
I don't know about changing the industry.
or build on
I
it?
think one of the main things for me, and I have far less opportunity to do it now because I'm not in that bar scene every day. But the one thing, every time I do step behind the bar, of which is still relatively regular, once a week or a couple of times a week, it's all about the customer experience. I don't care whether you can make me 1,000 different cocktails. I don't care if you can tell me about every single whiskey on your back bar. If you can't smile at me and say hello and make me feel welcome, then I don't really want to be here. It's that easy. You can make someone comfortable in the look of an eye and a brief smile. Even if you make them wait for 10 minutes, it's like, hey, I'll be right with you guys. People just don't want to feel ignored.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
And it happens far too often, and it happens a lot. With all of this innovation comes, the standard 18 to 22-year-old arrogance. I know everything. I'm going to teach every single customer about something that I learnt today because I know more than you, blah, 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 blah. And everybody needs to go through that stage, but everybody also needs to have it beaten out of them.
Yep.
I had it. And I was very fortunate to have it quite young. And you just realize that, if somebody comes in and they want a house white, make it the best house white wine they've ever had because you stood there and chatted with them.
Yeah.
And they just want to come back tomorrow. So it's almost like a return. When we talk about innovation, I feel like I'm on the path to, promoting what shouldn't be innovation, promoting what this industry should be all about. I don't need foams, I don't need airs, I don't need fat washes, I don't need molecular whatever. I need a smile and service.
Yep.
And
just
everything else follows.
Yeah. I was thinking like just an authentic, real deal hospitality experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And and it doesn't mean you can't be innovative.
Yeah.
You look at places like This Must Be the Place or mind blank right now, but they are pushing boundaries and they are making amazing drinks and they're still like at the top of their game globally, not just in Australia, globally. But you walk in there and you walk into This Must Be the Place, and whether it's Chino or Jake or whatever, or you walk into the Black Pearl and Beasley's there or Heisted's there, like it's all, they're there. Yeah. And it's not just because they know me. Every single person that walks through their door feels like...
So true.
Yeah.
The first time I went to the Black Pearl, I just went in, I asked for something pretty standard, but I mean, when I went to Melbourne last year, I think I mentioned it on a previous episode, I went to 84 different bars in 3.5 weeks, and I just wanted to know the Melbourne scene. So I went everywhere in everywhere within about 5 k's of the CBD, and fantastic experience at the Black Pearl. And I know that they win bar team of the year consistently, and I went in, and the next time I came in, they knew who I was, knew my name, knew the drink I got, and I didn't even have a great, long interaction with them. And whoever served me just knew who I was. Yeah. I didn't know their name, but they knew me. So, brilliant experience at these sorts of places.
Yeah, and that's what it should be about. Some of my favorite bartenders that I've ever been served by in the world, they have served me a beer, or they've served me a Guinness, or they've served me a gin and soda, but they've been so cheeky and just had a bit of a laugh, and I walk out of there going, man, I would kill to have you work with me. And that's it. Like, for me, that's the definition of a good bartender. It's, providing that service and making somebody feel so comfortable and so welcome that they don't want to leave.
Yeah. It's like your third home.
Yeah. Our job is to provide escapism.
Yeah.
If you make people feel alienated, or you make people feel like they're not the coolest people in the room, or you make people feel, or all your attention's going on the hot girl at the end of the bar or the hot guy at the end of the bar. Somebody's feeling alienated, and that's not escapism. Who wants to escape to that?
That's right.
Our role as industry professionals is to make sure that people are having an amazing time in a escapist scenario.
And they feel special.
Absolutely.
People want to feel special and important, and it's about making them the most important, making everyone feel like the most important person when they're in there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that transfers through all industries.
Yeah.
The people who are fantastic at their jobs, 9 times out of 10, are the people who make that person feel like they are the only. At the end of the day, we all work in the service industry. Whether you're a lawyer, whether you're an accountant, whether you're a bartender, it doesn't matter. You become so good at your job that you make people feel like you're the only one that they're caring about right now. If you can do that, then you're going to be successful in whatever you pursue.
It's so incredibly true. I'm going to have to reflect on a lot of that, actually. So the last question that I want to ask you, actually, I've got two little ones to wrap it up. What is the most insightful thing that you've learned from someone in the industry? Or actually, I'm going to double decker that question. In fact, I'm going to broaden it. What's the most valuable resource that you have on the hospitality industry that you think is, or rather, the most valuable thing that you believe can educate people in the industry?
An open mind.
Right.
And that sounds like a complete cop-out of an answer, but the best resource that we have within this industry is each other. Period. If you want to work in an amazing bar, go and sit at the amazing bar. Sit down at the end of it and talk to the bartender. If you want to work in an amazing restaurant, go to that restaurant and have a chat and be friendly and, engage in that conversation. Because as soon as anybody, it doesn't matter whether you're at Attica or Sepia or one of the best restaurants, or you're at the best bar, or wherever you are, if you are at somewhere that you would like to work, or the kind of place you would like to work one day, and you sit down and you show up and you be present and you speak to that person, you will get the same in return. Because at the end of the day, no matter how hard you try in this industry, you're always going to get a whole lot of people that just like, they treat you like rubbish. But if you're that person that goes in and asks questions and tries to engage in conversation and acts like they care, that's all the industry is about, just caring. If you can do that, that is the transfer of knowledge that happens, and that's the best transfer of knowledge that can happen. You can't get it from books. You can't get it from the internet. It's the best resource we have is each other.
I love it. That's how I try to approach things. With that open mind, just trying to explore, learn, grow. And I guess that's why I started the podcast too. I think I explained that in the intro episode. But
look, at the end of the day, I think I've got 2 jobs in my life of 30 with a resume. Everything else has just been sitting at a bar going, hey, give me a shift. I'll work for free. Or knowing somebody and be like, oh, you need someone? Yeah, okay. I might like that. I'll come over and help out for a night and see how it goes. Yeah. That's it.
Awesome. We the first question that I have moved in this because I knew we were going to talk a little bit about a couple of stories of yours. I actually want to ask you, I'm going to put it at the end of the episode, what is the most crazy, exciting, I suppose you talked about exciting, but crazy bar story you have, even if if you're willing to share any crazy stories?
Oh,
you're going through the process of like, can't say that. Can't say that.
I'm still working. I'm still a representative. Crazy bar stories. That is.
If it's too much, I'll give you a different question.
A difficult question. Go a different question, and I'll have a think about it.
I'll go you a different question. So we'll wrap it up with these 2 questions. So the other question is, you mentioned to me recently about an amazing meal that you had. The most that you paid for a meal and your experience with that meal. That
was the one with sepia. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it was, and I think I speak to people and I tell them this meal was at Sepia in Sydney, was then voted. It was in the top 3 in the country. Martin Ben, ironically, is the guy that did the recipe that kicked me out of MasterChef.
Right?
And I told him on the show that he owed me a table.
Yeah.
But we went in and spent more than a week's wage on this meal for 2 of us.
Crazy.
And I say more than a week's wage because it's all relative. I could say $7,000. I could say $2,000. It doesn't matter. A week's wage is a week's wage.
That's right.
So spent more than a week's wage, and I would do it again in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And it comes down to everything that we've said over this podcast. I was welcomed at the door. They knew who I was. They knew my name. They knew I was coming. They had a table set for us. There was champagne being poured as we walked in. Everything about it. As soon as we started speaking to our sommelier and our waiter, they sort of realized very quickly that we were both in the industry and we were just there to sort of experience everything.
Yeah.
And we experienced everything.
I love it. Yeah.
And it was phenomenal to be on that side of it and see other people get it and understand there is a reason for this sort of whatever it was price tag. It's a very, very special experience. And not everybody's receptive to it. I know I've told people how much it costs and they think I'm an idiot. They're like, I could buy a month worth of dinners for that.
Yeah.
I know you could, but I wouldn't change it for the world. And it's purely because I'd never felt as comfortable and I've never felt as welcome, and they made me feel like the most special person in the room. Well, they made us feel like the most special people in the room.
Yeah.
To the point where they're so good at their jobs, by the end of this meal, we had like inside jokes about other guests and stuff. And, And it was phenomenal. That was one of sort of the defining dining experiences I've ever had. And I think it'll take a lot to top it. I've had a few sort of that tier of restaurant dining experience, but that was absolutely incredible, and I would not change it for the world.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
Pleasure.
Have we got a crazy story?
Back to the crazy story. Man, they're all not PG at all.
We don't have to. We can wrap up with that one if you'd like.
There's I'll think of one. Actually, no, I can't. I don't think I can.
That's cool. That's cool.
Too many.
Maybe we can come back to it another time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll go off and think about it and find one in my back catalogue that I can actually say on air.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Totally fine. Look, I wanted to thank you very much for being on the show today, Jamie.
Pleasure.
It was awesome having you. Really insightful. Loved all your answers to the questions, and I'd love to have you on again because it was awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Listening at home, wherever you're listening to the show. If you've got any questions, anything you'd like on the show, any people you'd like me to interview, please email me at hospopreneurs@gmail.com and follow the Instagram page. The Instagram handle is hospopreneurs. So thank you again, and I am really excited to speak with you next time. Looking forward to having a chat. Cheers.
Peace.